My name is Will Bates. I'm the composer of The Better Sister on Amazon Prime.
Do I call it a psychological thriller? There's endless twists and turns. There's so much mystery even in the name itself.
Right.
This was one of my favorite shows this year. So it's a pleasure to talk to you about it. The theme of The Better Sister alone is always, if you look at it in a very linear way, you're thinking that there's possibly two sisters that competing for something.
That's right.
But we also see the two sisters very polarly different from each other, going through major things, but also at times a lot of empathy for one another, a lot of understanding and compromise throughout the entirety of it. Fantastic performances up and down the board. You as the fan, before the work, was this excitement coming into a project that you know was going to keep people at the edge of the seat the entire time?
I mean, I didn't know anything about the book or any of this before I got involved in this. And I didn't know, I started working on the first episode and I didn't know where this was going to go either. So then, of course, I started working with Craig Gillespie, who's the director of the first two episodes. We'd done a movie called Dumb Money together a couple of years ago. And so we have a pretty good shorthand with one another. So he had to be like, Will, mate, you need to, I think you need to figure out what's really going on with the story before you keep going. Because I'm like, what about this, Craig? He's like, nah, wrong again. So it's just like every single idea where I thought this was headed. So it had to, they were like, read the goddamn book and So I did, of course. But man, what a crazy journey you go on.
Absolutely, fully, and I've been saying it for a while. It's one of the better series of this year. People need to check it out. So with that being said, when a show like that really does have to lean on the mystery, it has to keep you on edge. What is your approach to make sure that the audience is uneasy the entire time? We have to stay and remain suspicious at the entirety. There's a lot of crazy things that happen. So right. What is your approach? And I've been saying it to everybody, so it's going to sound like a broken record, but the music are characters. So there is two sisters and some other folks involved here, but the music also plays a really contribution into what happens next. When random people show up at people's houses and you're like, oh, totally. Those two people are a thing now, and you went from like what in the world to like, oh, some sense of comfort here, or like, is there comfort? Wait, what is happening right now? And these things are happening non-verbally because the music is talking, the music's playing the character. So what is your approach in that?
That's really interesting. I mean, I think the thing that Craig said from the very beginning was POV. Like, we could be like looking at this character, but really, whose perspective are we looking at her most of the time, or him through? Like, are we looking at Nikki through Chloe's perspective? Are we with Nikki while we're, so there's a lot of that. And that, I think, was 80% of my job, was to sort of make that definition, and that tends to be completely subliminal, but it comes from melody a lot of the time, and that was something we talked about right at the beginning. Like, some filmmakers nowadays are not, don't, or maybe the project doesn't necessarily require it, but melody can be something that people shy away from. Was not really the case with this. Like, the showrunners were like, no, melody, let's use it. I just worked with someone who put it really nicely. He was like, if you can get to the end of a project where your audience feels like they own that melody, then you've like solved it. It's like, and then if you've given them that opportunity to own the melody, then you can warp it and twist it, and like you can play with it in a way because you've planted this. It's a tool that we can start to use. So I found myself sort of writing a lot of these quite dense, film noir-esque kind of big melodic passages, and then like taking a sledgehammer to them and planting those seeds early on, and using that as a way for us to understand like whose point of view we're really looking at.
I'm always so fascinated. I'm learning more and more coming to panels like this and speaking to folks like yourself, and this is why I'm so vocal about it, because if you didn't know any better, you're describing the character arc. It's saying somebody that says, like, you want to make sure you feel comfortable with this character. And you're like, oh, I would invite that person over for tea or beer or whatever it may be.
Totally.
And then next thing you know, that person's robbing you. You're just like, oh, shoot.
Yeah, the red herring. Totally.
I thought I was a good judge of character. And,
right, and that's I don't think there were any, like, deliberate misdirects in The Better Sister, but because they did a brilliant, they succeeded in making every line of inquiry seem totally plausible.
I would argue that I think there's a very easy, to the point of who's the better sister, I think there's a very clear, decisive who you think is the better out of the two.
From within 15 minutes of the,
Only to be completely wrong.
Completely torpedo. Yeah. Just watch the show.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an important, to kind of, all is not as it seems, and when, for me that meant like, these melodies that you feel kind of confident with, but I would like try and just make them feel weird, and, like slightly off kilter and wonky, and
you know what? What? I'm a big vinyl collector right now. Do you know if that soundtrack is available?
It's available on Spotify. We didn't do a physical release, as is the case like 90% of the time nowadays, unfortunately.
It's starting to get a little better.
Yeah, it is.
But it does take a lot of.
They've been great. I did a score for a movie called Immaculate last year that came out on vinyl.
Immaculate,
Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay. It did. That's right.
Yeah. Very limited run.
Right.
Yeah. And a few of those and sell them in 10 years.
That's my thing. That's why it's such a guilty pleasure now, because beyond loving the music and just hearing that sound in my place, it's almost the thrill of the hunt. Because when you get it, you're like, damn, this is worth it. You know, I had to find it through the grapevine, but here it is.
Also, it means you're not a slave to the algorithm. I have kids, right? So when my kids were younger, it was like sitting there with the Alexa. I'm like, we can play anything, and we're like not playing anything at all. Also, it sounds like shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, having a curated collection of music that we're ramming down their throats now feels much more healthy. Yeah.
Listen, I'm gonna end with this one, and I've said it to some of your colleagues here today. As a person who critiques films, the first thing I always go to first is the music department. We want to talk about the score. I want to talk about like how the score plays a character. You want the things that make you feel. I feel like now this is really starting to catch on. And I'm not saying I'm the one that's doing it, but I'm saying like a lot of more people now are understanding that these aren't the composers, the folks all involved. These aren't given. They're not just people. I would like to say like it's not just an iPod just sitting by and they're like, hey, we need music. Just put something on.
Right.
It's a legitimate measure of work, study, diligence, and character development, as you say. Just for you and your time, like seeing this now come around and the recognitions being given, the flowers, the love. What's sort of been those emotions for you?
It's been interesting, because I feel like as a kid, I was interested in this stuff and no one else was, right? Like I would go out and, I remember I was talking to one of the composers here a minute ago about Ennio Morricone, and I love Ennio Morricone. I watched the movie when I was maybe 10 years old of his called Frantic, which is a Roman Polanski, pretty obscure thing. I remember going to the high street to buy the cassette of the score. Like, how nerdy is that? And I remember the guy teasing me, like, oh yeah, my mum's got that one. It's like, shut up, man.
Yeah, now look at you, huh?
Yeah, well, so I feel like now that wouldn't happen quite so much. Now they would be like, yeah, that's cool. That kid's cool.
Yeah.
As opposed to like that kid is a nerd.
Yeah.
I think that culture's been like, people understand what goes into it now, which is awesome.
I tell you this, and this last thing I'll say, and this definitely isn't me, because I speak to other folks, but like, we always used to talk about duos in terms of director-actor. Now people are talking about composer, director.
Totally.
And then you had some of the legacy folks like the John Williams and Steven Spielberg and whatnot, and Nolan and Zimmer. But like, we're seeing this more and more, and we know when you had those two components, you know exactly how elaborate the story.
This is like a high-end
thing. And it's not just the epic in terms of the cinematography, but it's an epic because of the music and the direction of the director. I think we're definitely in a great time right now for music.
It's golden age.
It's so much fun talking to you.
Yeah, good to chat to you too. Thanks for having me.
I really hope you have a good rest of your Comic-Con, buddy.
You
Thank
too.
you so much for your time today.
Okay.
Absolutely.